Hello, welcome to the Thriving Immigrant podcast. And this is Paul Adeye. I'm excited about today's conversation. But before we dive into that conversation, if you are listening to me for the very first time, I want to say a big thank you to you. Thank you for tuning in. And please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when new episodes drop. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back. You know, that's one of the ways to keep me motivated. So if you've not subscribed to the Thriving Immigrant podcast, please subscribe and share this with someone that you feel like will benefit from these conversations. I'm excited about today's conversation. You know why? The tech space has experienced, we've seen some tremendous growth in the tech space over the last, let's say, 10, 15 years. And that space is still growing. In fact, I realized that boot camps and non-traditional way of transitioning into tech has been one of those ways where people are really maximizing. As of 2013, about 10,000 people graduated from coding classes just on boot camps alone. But that grew to 60K in 2023,
Wow.
telling you that the space is still growing. Interestingly, over 1.5 million people have been trained by boot camps alone in the last 10 years. Now, when people move to Canada or when they move to other countries, one of their biggest challenges is how do I transition or how do I start a new career? Everybody understands that the tech space is well paying. We've seen a lot of interesting transitions. I've seen different people from very far background transitioning into different fields in the tech space. We've seen people moving from maybe a pharmacist becoming a data analyst. We've seen different ones. But there's a field that I think is still not fully tapped, is still not so maximized, and is an essential field. That field is tech sales field. Most people are confused. They really don't understand what's tech sales. And that's why I'm excited about my guest. My guest today is Dolapo Fadare. Dolapo moved to Canada in 2007. She's the founder of StriveOpp. She's very passionate about empowering people. And I'm so inspired and impressed with what she's building. She has helped a lot of people to transition into tech and tech sales. Now, before I introduce my guest or before I welcome her to the show, I know that AI is changing our world in a very unprecedented way. AI is consuming some existing opportunities at the same time creating new opportunities. But the amazing thing for me is this: those new opportunities that are being created, we need to be sold. Somebody has to sell those opportunities to people. And that's why I think tech sales will remain relevant for a long time. So, welcome, Dolapo, to the Thriving Immigrant podcast.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you for having me. Super excited for this conversation here and for us to really dive into what is tech sales, number one, but also how people can thrive in it, even for immigrants, newcomers, and what all of that entails.
Okay. When I read your bio and I saw that you moved to Canada in 2007, I was hoping to see one old woman. And I was like, oh, okay. So, if you moved to Canada in 2007, chances are you moved there at a very early age. Do you want to
Mhm.
walk us through your immigration journey, how you found yourself in Canada?
Yeah, great question. Thanks so much for asking. I mean, to some people, I might be an old woman. I think my niece will probably consider me an old woman. But when I moved to Canada, I was 9 years old, and so my mom had immigrated to Saskatchewan first a few years before. This was when the Saskatchewan government was looking for more nurses as a way to supplement, I guess, what they didn't have in terms of the head count. And so when I first moved, I was a stark difference from like Lagos, of course. Saskatchewan is very cold, and at that
Mm.
time there weren't a lot of, you know, Black Nigerian immigrants in Saskatchewan or in Regina specifically. And so whenever we see each other at like Superstore was like our meeting point, okay? So whenever we saw each other at Superstore, it was a, hey, how are you doing? You invite each other to church. We would, have language school as well. We actually ended up having Yoruba language school
Okay.
and multiple cultural days as a way to make sure that we still learn and understand our culture. And so while all of that was happening, I, of course, continued my education. I studied in elementary school and high school there in Regina, and then went to USask and did an honors degree in economics and poli-sci. I was also able to graduate debt-free from university by getting over 100K in grants and scholarships. And
Wow.
so by doing that, it also opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities because for me, in my immigration journey, I saw that a lot of our people were working in healthcare primarily. And I was just that kid that I could not care about sciences, to be honest. Mainly because it just didn't vibe with me, frankly.
Hmm.
To the point that I was very confident that it was not for me, that in high school, I didn't take any science prerequisites for university. I knew that I wanted to be in the social sciences and in the humanities. And so that was my immigration journey. Fast forward now, I've been working the tech sector for the past 8 years, working with both Canadian and US high growth unicorn companies. And now on the other side, helping people secure roles in tech.
Amazing, beautiful story. And thank you for sharing your story. So here you are working in tech without any science background. That's quite interesting. And I'm really curious. Do you want to share with us how you found yourself in that space? Like for someone that wasn't even interested in science and tech, but here you are making a lot of money and impacting lives in the tech space.
Yeah, great question. So I would say that it wasn't that I wasn't interested in sciences and tech. It was just like I wanted to focus on my strengths and focus on that aspect of things. And so because I was very passionate about the community development, and humanities, in 2016, 2017, I thought to myself, why don't I create a platform to address political apathy? I was studying, again, economics and political science, and I was very curious to see how technology was rapidly changing things.
Hmm.
And so, in creating this platform and like networking with people, I actually stumbled upon the biggest tech incubator in Saskatchewan called Collabs.
Okay.
And within there, there was a GovTech, so a government technology company that was building a platform to better assist immigrant entrepreneurs to come to Canada, but also for cities and towns across Canada and the US to be able to also attract new investments and grow their population. And so that was very interesting. And that's when I got my first role in tech in 2017, 2018, where I was on the customer facing side. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a yapper. I'm someone who can easily talk and have conversations with people and build relationships. And so, again, coming back to operating from a strength-based point of view, I landed that role there. And then I got into one of Canada's most competitive tech and entrepreneurship fellowships for university students called the Cansbridge Fellowship. And as
Okay.
part of that, I got a chance to go to Silicon Valley actually in 2018, where I visited offices such as LinkedIn,
Okay.
Lever, Lyft, right? And also got an understanding of like, okay, within those tech companies, what are the different roles that are available, right? What are the different ways that you can contribute value towards a team? And that's where I really became exposed to tech sales.
Hmm.
After that, I did an internship with a VC e-commerce with a VC called ZX Ventures. They're a subsidiary of AB InBev, which is like a huge FMCG conglomerate. And I was doing some research on how AI could be used to boost productivity. Again, this was back in 2018 before AI really became part of pop culture as well. And from doing that and really seen how the tech ecosystem was booming both in Canada, US, but also internationally in China as well. I knew that it was a space that I wanted to continue in. So that's exactly what I did is I continued working in tech.
Awesome. I really love your story. And I love the fact that you mentioned your strength. And that's a big deal because most times when I speak with people, people who really make significant growth early enough in life are those that are able to identify their strength early enough and focus on it and maximize it. Okay, so how has it been for you? Like, do you think that because you came here at a very early age, did you experience some unique advantages? Like, would you say that your journey is a little bit not as tough as the typical immigrants that move here maybe as adults?
That's a good question. I don't want to diminish the fact that when you are an adult, right, it is harder to find sometimes to find resources that are in alignment to what's at what stage you are in. So what I mean by that is I will say the benefit of, let's say, someone moving to Canada at a young age or as a student is within the university ecosystem, right? There are a lot of resources that you can take advantage of to be able to really develop yourself within your career. And that's exactly what I did. I was
Hmm,
able to attend 12 different conferences while in uni. I did 5 different internships across both government and tech and um, community development. And on top of that, I was able to just already start having conversations with people that were a few years ahead of me to see, okay, what do I like and what don't I like? And what, again, are the areas where I can apply my strengths the most. So that is the advantage when you are, I guess, younger. However, I wouldn't say it's still easy at all, right? Because
right.
again, 2007, Canada, and the immigrant community is very, very different from what it is right now. So that's
Absolutely.
number one. And then number two, I also don't want us to think that as adults, it's impossible for us to achieve our goals because, hey, I mean, to some extent, there are probably a lot more responsibilities that one is thinking about as an adult versus, let's say, someone who is young and their parents is kind of their safety net, right?
Right.
And so as adults, I think the biggest thing it also still comes back to that resourcefulness, right? I
Hmm.
yes, it's harder when you're an adult, but there are still resources, and those resources could look as simple as, okay, the community that you're part of, how are you maybe asking for support or asking for help? How are you using and utilizing free resources that might be out there that can help you move one step closer to your goal? And I've also worked with individuals who have moved to Canada recently, I'm saying thinking in the last 5, 6 years, who have also been able to successfully pivot into tech sales, mainly because they are following structured guidance and again
Hmm.
tapping resources and community. And so, yes, there's a bit of a difference, but the thing that distinguishes a young adult that does really well, because there are other young adults that were my age that came at the same time, and some of them are still struggling, right?
Hmm.
With the way the job market is to
Right.
some extent, of course, it's no fault of their own, but it's also important for people to be proactive and resourceful in order to best maximize for their career development.
Thank you. You are so self-aware and gracious. I love how you responded to that question, like not diminishing. Right. So for immigrants, for me, I've seen a lot of people that have transitioned into tech,
Hmm.
and it's quite astonishing for me seeing their lives positively change
Hmm.
just by that singular move. Like you see people trying to pay their bills, and the moment they just pivot into tech, you can see the impact. And that gives me so much joy. However, So many people still have the fear of, oh, I don't want to code. I know that there's money in tech, but I don't want to code. I don't think I can even code. Maybe I should do something else.
Mm.
Should I transition into business analysis, project management? Then, when you have the conversation of tech sales, sales alone without adding tech is intimidating. Oh, no, no, no. I don't want to be knocking on doors. I can't take rejections. I don't want to sell tech sales. So, does that mean I have to code and now start selling the code? So, it's just an intimidating world if there's anything like that. However, some people are still maybe interested, they just don't have enough information. So, what would you tell someone listening to you right now saying, Texas is not for me, even though I'm struggling on my current role and I think I deserve a lot more better, but where do I even start from?
The biggest thing I would tell someone who is listening right now, and let's say they are frustrated within their current role, they're not seeing the income that they would like to see in their wallet and their paycheck, is that the skills you have right now are transferable to tech sales. So what does all of that mean? Someone might be listening like Dolapo, like be for real, right? And if I was to break that down and instill it, it's that tech sales does not only involve just selling, right? Now, like Paul was mentioning earlier, we have a number of companies that are really booming right now when it comes to like companies being created in the AI space, cybersecurity, blockchain, all of these emerging technologies that is really reshaping every single industry. Now, of course, in order for a company to continue either receiving money from investors or for their stocks to even do really well, they need revenue. And in order for them to gain revenue, they need people that are pitching to other businesses how their solution or product actually will help solve a pain point that another company is facing. Now,
Absolutely.
of course, that's the entire sales org, right? The entire tech sales organization within a company. Within tech sales in itself, there are 10 plus different type of roles that someone can transition into, right? There's, of course, the entry level, which is
Okay.
SDR, which is sales development rep or business development rep. But there are people that are responsible for closing and bringing in those deals for people to sign on the dotted line. Those are typically your account executives. Now, beyond that, when a company already has, let's say, hundreds, thousands of clients, they need people to manage those current clients as well. And
Yeah.
that's where your account managers and your customer success managers also come into play to be able to retain those clients, but also to expand them as well. And I find that especially for account managers as well as CSMs, people that have previous experience in like banking or accounting, even SDR, BDR. I've seen people that are accountants successfully pivot into tech sales. I've seen people that are formerly in customer service, in retail, even bartenders, right? I've seen people successfully pivot as well. And that's on the customer facing side. There are other non-customer facing side roles, especially when it comes to operations, right? So if
Mm.
you're someone who is more, let's say you have a more project-based mindset and you're trying to understand how to optimize processes, there's revenue operations, there's business operation, there's partnerships. I can go on and on in terms of
I
like
see.
all the different type of roles. And so if we come back to the previous thing I mentioned on strength based perspective and operating out of that, it's really finding which role aligns with your strengths.
Thank you. And that's very beautiful. I love how you explain that, making it sound like not every salesperson need to be running after clients, knocking on doors, winning new clients, because I think that's the biggest fear for most people. You might find yourself in a role where you just nurture existing relationships just to keep serving existing clients, not winning new clients. So you're not like a you're not like a hunter, you're like a farmer.
Exactly.
Yeah, so and that's good. And I love how you talked about people who have previous experiences that they can easily just transfer Like a lot of people in my own circle worked in the bank. They were account executives, but the word tech sales make some of them feel like, oh, I need to go back to school or I need to start learning how to code. But I think not necessarily. So in your case, you've been helping people for like 4 or 5 years right now. How many years have you been doing this for?
Yeah, so I've been working in tech sales for 8 years, but in
Okay.
terms of supporting people, it would be
Yes.
the past year, mainly from
Okay.
just sharing my own experiences. And then people are like, can you create a program? Can you walk me through this? And that's how I transition more into helping people secure roles.
Okay, beautiful. So, do you think that do you think there are some special traits that those successful people in sales, in tech sales, do you think they have some special traits? Let me not
Yeah,
use special. Let me just say unique traits.
yeah. And so in terms of the unique traits, I would say they're not unique, mainly because anyone can learn them.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of this as well. Like you mentioned, you don't need to learn how to code, but what is essential is number one, a very strong communication skill or repertoire. And so what I mean by that is both written and verbal communication is really key to succeed very well in tech sales. That's number one. Number two thing is actually resilience and adaptability. And so in a lot of tech sales orgs, let's say in one quarter, you might have an exact way of a process of doing things. But if the market shifts and things need to be adjusted, the company is going to adjust that accordingly. And so you have to be a person that's not like, oh my goodness, you know what? I've been doing this like this for the last year. It's working. And so therefore that's the exact same thing I want to keep doing. That's not going to fly, right? And so that's another key skill that is really, really important
Hmm.
as well in tech sales. And then the third I will say is just like coachability. And so a lot of times, especially early stage startups or startups that haven't IPO'd, they are really looking for people that, okay, yes, let's say they have the fundamentals down and the basics down, but are they willing to learn? And are they willing to, let's say, maybe take best practices that is working for a top performer on the team? Are they willing to listen to their managers and apply certain techniques on what is working for other people on the team and apply that? And I find that typically, if someone has those three traits, it is easier for them to transition into tech sales because whether we realize it or not, there's so many parts of like any role that you're doing that is selling, right? Even if you're, let's say, like you mentioned previously, an account executive at a bank previously in Nigeria, you have had scenarios where you had to call and email clients. You have
Mm-hmm.
had scenarios where you have had to convince someone to change their, let's say, their position or mind about something, that being, let's say, expanding accounts. You've had scenarios where you've had to deal with objections. Objections meaning, oh, someone asking questions and not being really sure about moving forward with you. Same thing goes if you are someone who has, let's say, even worked in customer service before, right?
Right.
You are on the phone, you again are building that verbal and written communication on a daily basis. And so I think a lot of times people don't realize how the skills they already have can be transferred over and how to properly communicate that in their resume, on LinkedIn, and in interviews.
Awesome. So it's been a very insightful conversation with Dolapo Fadare. So if you are listening to me right now and you are thinking, do I should I try tech sales? I don't want to code, but you can tell that all these things Dolapo has shared, some of them are things that you've done in the past and you don't mind switching or transitioning and make more money for yourselves and also have the opportunity to maybe work remotely.
Yeah.
And you know, the beautiful thing about sale is the reason why I'm really passionate about sale is the fact that the skills that you gain unconsciously, those skills are life saving skills. They are skills that you can use anywhere. And it is only in sales, as far as I'm concerned, that your income is not capped
No.
because you can wake up a broke person today and make a sale and you sleep as a rich person. Or every company that I know of, even if you're maybe operations manager or you are in tech, you are a coder or whatever, the only time you're likely to make extra income maybe when there's profit sharing. But in sales, there are incentives. Some companies do quarterly incentives. Some companies do maybe monthly incentives. Some even do annual incentives. So you can start your career in sales with a base salary of maybe 100K, and you can end that year with maybe 250K, depending on how many sales you make or how many deals you close. Am I right, Dolapo?
No, you're 100% right, especially when it comes to the salary progression that is possible within, tech sales, because typically every role will have a base and commission,
Right.
especially if you're hunting and farming. Now, on the more operational side, it's more bonuses that are um, included in that. But I think what will actually be insightful for people is I can share what my salary progression has been over the years. And so when I first got my first role out of university, it was just a 50K salary with no commission. And this was a role that I did with a health tech startup. I actually networked my way into getting this role as well. And then within a few months, I knew that I wanted to work within a bigger company that had a lot more structure. And so I ended up working remotely with a company in Toronto while I was still in Saskatchewan. And so that role offered a base of 50K as well, but I was able to then get commission on top of that of an on target earnings of 75K
Hmm.
um, in total of that. And then once I was doing that for a while, got promoted, but the promotion, the pay didn't match, right? It was like a 2K bump in salary. When you spread that over like 12
12
months,
months with
taxes on
taxes,
top of that,
it's like
much don't finish. There's
$75
nothing
per
left.
paycheck.
Yeah, nothing left. And so I started looking at, okay, what are other companies I could work at? And again, leverage the skills I already have while also increasing my income. It's important for me to also mention come back to what you mentioned on like the skills you learn because I was already really good at what I did. I was actually able to then package my offering as, someone in tech sales or that knows how to expand sales to a Nigerian tech startup. So I was earning money for my full-time job, but also earning money consulting for another company that wanted to expand their sales team as well. And so once I saw that I could leverage both of that, I then landed another role, which was a 75K base with commission on top of that of additional 45. So I was 24 with six figures income, right? Yes, doing the little dance. I stepped away from working a little bit because I'd saved some money. I wanted to take a break, but also trying my hand at entrepreneurship. And so I did that for a while, but then I returned to the job market and I was still able to secure a role. Now I took a pay cut. In that scenario, I went back to 55K, and I'm saying this to be very transparent because I think
Which I
sometimes
appreciate.
we just see like someone's journey and we think it's just completely
Linear.
linear, but that's not the case at all. And it's important to know that, okay, even through the ups and downs, that you have the skills that are is necessary to continue going. And so the next role that I got was like 55K base and 25K commission. So it was still 80K, but I wanted more. And I was successfully able to then get a role of a base of 105K with unlimited commission.
Wow.
Imagine base of 105K cat. And that's where things really shifted for me when it comes to life. So this all goes to show you that it is possible to earn really highly in tech without learning to code or having to go back to school. You just have to do it in a way that is structured. That way you're not wasting your own time trying to like break your head on it. It's easier to learn from someone who has already done it before than trying to start everything from scratch.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being transparent. I really love your story. And you made a very valid point, like letting people know that it's not a linear journey. Sometimes your journey can be zigzag, but the skills and the knowledge that you gain during those times will always be relevant and will help you in the future. Okay, so if you are enjoying this conversation, subscribe to this channel, share this with someone that you think will benefit from transitioning to tech sales or to tech at all. And you can follow Dolapo on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and we are going to get to that shortly. But I still have some questions for you, Dolapo.
No problem.
So, what do you think are I don't know if you've touched on this, no, what are the biggest mistakes that you think people make when trying to transition into not tech sales generally, but into something different, especially in the tech space? Are there any mistakes that you've seen?
Yeah. One of the mistakes I see often is people pile on certifications. And so what I mean by that is people go ahead and, they do one certification and they do another, and then they add that to their resume
This
and they
table
think
you are
that,
shaking.
sorry?
This table you are shaking.
I'm sorry to say, hold on to your chair, clutch your pearls, just like hold yourself. I'm gonna be very gentle while I say this.
Okay.
Before you try and pivot to a new role, talk to someone who has done that role before you go back and just collect certification.
Hmm.
Certifications is not like Thanos golden rings. We don't need to collect five of them in order to successfully transition into a new role. And so that is the biggest mistake that I see because sometimes people are also doing the wrong certifications, right? And so that's number one. The number two thing is not using the proper language to communicate the impact of the roles they've had in the past and how that
Hmm.
relates to what tech role they're applying for. So, for example, if someone has, let's say, worked in a bank before, and they are applying for a tech role, but if they are not mentioning scenarios or like let's say on a daily basis the total number of people that they're working with, or they're not mentioning how much revenue that they've contributed to that role, or they're not even mentioning okay what are ways they have improved either productivity or helped in cost savings for that company, it's very least likely that your resume will pass through, mainly because again you have to think like a business that's hiring you, right? They want to see what impact have you been able to deliver for a different company, because that's the only way they can basically stress test, the
Right.
litmus test for them to see how you're going to perform in your own role. And then the third biggest mistake I would say that I see this a lot, especially within the immigrant community, is being too humble. And I'm not joking in the sense that I've had scenarios where I am doing mock interviews with clients or having conversations with people, and they're like, oh, but I don't want to seem like I'm bragging. Oh, I don't want it to seem like I am doing too much. Your resume, your interview process, all of that is when exactly you want to be doing too much
Much.
and where you are actually really talking about the value you can bring. I think sometimes people come to interviews or approach jobs like, "Oh my goodness, I would be lucky if this company was to hire me," rather than having the mindset of like, "No, this company is lucky to have me." And
Right.
and going with that energy because it impacts when people can smell desperation,
Yeah.
even in interviews. And when you position that mindset or rethink that mindset of like, okay, this company is lucky to have me, and these are the reasons why,
It
rather than,
changes
oh,
everything.
changes everything than, oh, this is why you should hire me. No, it's that you are going to be a top performer in that role. You're going to contribute. And because the data shows it, I think, especially as Nigerians, right? It's ingrained in us. Now, in the journal they carry last, you must do very well. So naturally, we are ingrained to be really, really, really amazing contributors to a company.
Right.
However, I think there's also another part of culture that teaches us that, oh, even when we say congratulations to someone, it's like, ah, it's by God's grace. We don't allow ourselves to actually take that compliment. And even sometimes me too, I still do it, right? But that's the energy we don't want to have during interviews or in approaching um career transitions as well. So those are the three biggest mistakes. There's still a few more I can talk about, but I'll pause in for now.
Yeah, I think you should pause before you shatter all the tables. So, because you've been shaking a lot of tables, and you are spot on. You are spot on because, and I don't blame people too, because of course, if you've spent 30, 35 years in a particular environment, you you are an unconscious product of that environment.
100%.
So the culture we we shape you, and you just suddenly find yourself in a new environment with a different culture, and you're already black. Like for the first time when I came to Canada, that was when I realized I was black. When I started seeing myself in the middle of different colors. So, and when you send maybe like 10, 15, 20, 30 applications, and finally somebody is asking that they want to speak to you, you begin to feel like, oh, I'm being lucky
Yeah.
and all that. So, but I think is a very important conversation that we are having. You talking about that mindset. I've seen how that mindset can really help you because even when you finally get that role, some people do a lot of some people add a lot of value, but they're not able to communicate that value,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it prevents them from growing in their career. So it doesn't just end at you getting the first job. You also need to change your mindset so you can grow in your career. Thank you so much, Dolapo. This has been a very insightful conversation. I'm going to ask maybe two more questions before we call it a day. Is there, do you have any particular story that makes you feel good every time you remember? Maybe you've worked with a client whereby you can now see, like I was sharing earlier on, I was talking about how I see the impact instantly when people pivot into tech. Have you worked with anyone that gives you so much joy every time you remember how this person's life has been transformed?
Hmm. Yeah, so the story I'm going to share is someone who I recently worked with because within a span of 3 months, I could really see the change in even how this person was confident about themselves as
Hmm.
well, and how they were able to successfully secure a role. And so when I first connected with this person, we connected on LinkedIn. Um, she is also an immigrant, Black from East Africa, but also African. And this person is a mom. And so she was currently, she was previously, excuse me, working within a company where she knew wasn't really a good fit for her, number one. But also number two, people were a little bit, she was feeling the stress from that job, mainly from the way her coworkers were speaking to her. And she knew that it wasn't in alignment with what she wanted to do. Now, she had previously tried to pivot into tech sales actually, and found an organization in the US to do this with, but they told her that she's not going to be able to successfully get a role because of her accent and the
Oh.
way she talks. And
Hmm.
so when we first spoke, she was like, I'm not even sure if I can do this. But I mean, I was looking through her resume and some of the things she had done in her country were amazing. Like she had closed like millions of dollars in like in basically correlated sales as well for another company that was operating out of her country but based in the US. And so I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and this is someone who had also done a postgraduate certification here in Canada, on top of having a US degree, but like most of her background in terms of like her work experience was in her home country. And so I'm like, okay, yes, I understand like, your hesitancy based on like some of these ridiculous things that somebody else had said based on your background, but it is 100% possible because again, I have worked at companies where white colleagues, they're before they got into tech sales, their previous roles were like bartending, retail. No shade to any of those roles. I think every single job is important, right?
Yes,
And they're essential to us living. I'm only
absolutely.
saying that to show that the people that are doing this don't have two heads, as our people would say. They
Yes,
really do
don't.
not have two heads. And was able to encourage her. And then we went through her resume thoroughly just to make sure that she was communicating the impact of those roles correctly. A lot of times people use passive language to describe like bullet points in their application, I mean in their resume,
Resume.
number one. But number two is that they only provide insights on like responsibility versus the actions they took
The
within that role.
impact.
Exactly, and the impact. Once we did that, we also got her familiar with a number of like tech sales tools. And so there are essential tools. Anyone that's listening, you can of course go and Google these. There's Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoom Info, Apollo. There are a few other ones that we really went through to support her in gaining an understanding of that.
Yeah.
And then we went to work on submitting applications on her behalf. And so as part of our program at StriveUpp, we actually will do 30 applications daily for our clients, mainly
Wow.
because we understand that within this job market, yes, quantity and quality is
Matter.
something you have to do at the same time.
So that's
And so,
150 per week.
yeah,
That's huge.
yeah.
That's where most people get frustrated at the point of sending application. So what you are doing is very, very remarkable.
Yeah, thank you. And because we optimize the resume and the LinkedIn, of course, we send you
Yeah.
things to update with your LinkedIn after we've done the resume work. She was able to then start landing interviews. There was a time where she had up to 8 interviews in 1 week. And
Wow.
consistently she
Back
was
to
seeing
back.
3 to 5 interviews every week. And so some of them didn't pan out, right? And
Of
I
course.
think that's really important to level set with people because at times people are like, okay, they start seeing momentum and they're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to interview and the first one I'm going to
I'll
get.
get
That
it.
is,
It rarely happens.
it rarely happens. It's like building a new muscle, right? Even if you're someone who's really good at interviewing for tech companies are different
Mm,
because sometimes they have three, sometimes four stages of interviews, number one. And number two, again, language and syntax really, really
matter.
matters. And so what we did with her is, of course, we coached her having different mock interviews with her. And part of StriveUpp, we also work with a network of tech sales mentors. Some of them are really top performing US companies and Canadian companies as well. And so she really got to practice and improve her interviewing skills. And then I also coached her on the quality aspect of things. And so what I mean by quality is we have this thing called a 6-day outreach sequence that you could use to build relationship with hiring managers and peers as a way to leverage referrals and really also see, okay, if I'm applying at this company, is it actually worth it? Like, let me get the tea before I get in because we don't want to enter a job and then it gives us headache, to be frank, right? And so we did that as well, and then coach her on how to create 90-day plans that help her stand out in the interview process. Long story short, this was actually very recent. So earlier this week, a company had confirmed with her that they would give her an offer. And before that offer conversation, we sat down and went through negotiation tactics because what don't we do? We don't accept the first offer, right? We never do. And so and this is very important for anyone listening to this, go and watch Exo Rennie's video on this because it's important to negotiate. Companies are expecting you to negotiate. And so once we went through the negotiation module and helping her with that, she had the conversation on Thursday or Friday or recently anyway, and was successfully able to negotiate based on the taxes we taught her and increase that base by at least 5K. That way, she's not leaving any money at the table. And
Right.
now she's like, wow, like this, she literally went from a place of someone telling her she can't do this because of accent to then securing a role that is fully remote with a US company in tech sales at a
Wow.
salary range that fitted what she was looking for.
That's quite inspiring. I can imagine how excited she is, especially for someone that wasn't thinking that she could do it. Now you've been able to empower her, and you really don't even have an idea what the future holds for someone like this. So you are doing a very remarkable work,
Thank you.
and I would say thank you for
Oh,
empowering the community, for giving hope to people, for being there for the underrepresented. Because the struggle of an immigrant or the struggle of immigrants is there actually. And it's until the point where you are able to make money to at least pay your bills
yeah.
before you can start thinking of something else. So you are solving a very significant problem in our community. Okay, this has been a very insightful conversation. I really don't want to stop. I've learned a lot, and right now I'm thinking, maybe I should subscribe to one of your courses. Should I try tech sales? But now, for someone listening to you right now, thinking, I want to work with Dolapo, how can they contact you?
Great question. So they can contact me either on LinkedIn, it's Dolapo Fadare, or they can reach out to me also on Instagram, which is at StriveUpp. So that's StriveOpp at StriveUpp on Instagram. And so there are two ways we typically work with people. And so the first is for people that are looking to transition to tech sales from like the entry level route. So those are sales development rep roles or business development rep roles. We actually do have an upcoming cohort for May 6th where you would be able to learn in a very intimate setting with myself and our tech sales mentors on the sales fundamentals, the tools that you need. We'll go through your resume and LinkedIn together. We will apply for jobs for you for the first month and also coach you through mock interviews and negotiation as well. And so we have that coming up for May 6th as a cohort. And if you have any questions on that, you can let me know and I can send you more details on it. And then the other way I typically work with people, these are for more senior roles. And so whether it's AE, AM, etc., type of roles, those are what more one-on-one personalized coaching at the moment. And so you can let me know whichever one you're thinking about, or even maybe just let me know your biggest struggle with your job search right now, and happy to answer questions. I post a lot of tips and in terms of in reels and carousels on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn with actionable tips that people can take as well. And some people have just followed that and they've done really well.
Yeah.
Carrying a role. There was one person I spoke with that she was already doing like fractional marketing manager roles, but she wanted to work in a tech sales capacity with a US company. And we only had just like one conversation. We had a ask me anything session. And I gave her, a number of the different job sites for her to look through, the strategy to take for her application, and she secured the role by herself. And so it really depends on the person and their needs. And so again, reach out to me on any of those channels and we can see what's best for you.
Okay. So, not sure when you'll be listening to this. Even if you are listening after May 6th, you should feel free to reach out to Dolakbo. She's been doing this for a while and she's still willing to continue doing this. Check her out on LinkedIn, check her out on Instagram. And thank you for tuning in, everyone. But I want to ask you one question, Dolakbo. Do you think women make better salespeople?
My
Uh,
face said it all first, but let me let you land.
so the reason why I'm asking is I feel like, and I might be wrong, I feel like women make better salespeople. Like it's easier for women to convince people to buy than men. Do you agree?
Yeah, so I definitely agree when it comes to that because women, one of the things that we're really good at is we're really good at empathy and reciprocating on empathy as well. And also asking curious based questions. I'm not saying that a man can't do that same things, but I think as women, we're also like socially conditioned to do those things. And so when it comes to working in tech sales and in sales in general, women are a lot more stronger in empathizing and understanding a customer pain points, which are really, really necessary because in order to make a sale, you actually need to understand the pain points and challenges that someone is going through before you can
Absolutely.
actually pitch a solution. It's the same way, like if you go to the doctor and you show up in the consult room and the doctor is like, you look like you need this paracetamol, and you're like I don't have a
Right.
headache. Actually, what is doing me is like I have diarrhea. I don't know, or like I'm throwing up. Right? It's the sales is the same way in that we need to first ask questions, understand, okay, what are the symptoms the person is having, and then prescribing a solution. And so I found that women are really strong at that versus, let's say, counterparts men. But I think that men also, one of the things that is different is that I find colleagues that are men and sellers, they have this energy where they really don't care. What I mean about they really don't care is that like if a client or someone says like, "Oh, let me get back to you in a month," they will consistently keep reaching out. Even if they call 3, 4 times in a day, they don't care. Versus I think us women were like again conditioned to like be nice,
Yeah.
right?
Don't
This
want to
this like
pester
nice
for too
politics.
long.
Exactly. We are not as, it's not even pushiness. We're not as like da 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 versus like I find men sellers are a lot more like they don't care about being nice. And it's not that they're not being nice. It's maybe nice is not the word. It's not about being nice. They're very persistent because again, things are not being taken personally of like nice or not. They just see that, hey, this is a job that needs to get done. And so I
Yeah.
would say those are some of the differences I have seen.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. I agree with you 100% because I've been in sales too all my life. And I feel like the people who do very well are those that are able to combine those feminine traits
Yeah,
with those masculine
masculine.
traits.
Yeah.
So as a man who is empathetic enough, who knows how to ask the right questions and blends it with not giving up, knowing how to follow up, we do very well. And as a
Mm-hmm.
woman, if you are able to get that masculine trait, add it to the natural empathy that a woman has,
Mm.
there is a strong chance that you will do very well. And that takes me back to my very first sales interview many years back. We were four at that interview, and I was a fresh graduate from the university, and the interviewer asked us to argue about, I think, a political situation in the country then.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was arguing, but I didn't say anything. I I was just observing. And by the time I said something, the guy was like, okay, I love that you are asking questions. And when it comes to sales, it's about active listening than speaking. So that was when I learned that to be successful in sales, you need to know how to ask the right questions and how to listen more. Because most people feel like if you're a natural extrovert, you will sell well. Not necessarily, but it's also good to be sociable. So thank you, Dolapo. It's been a very interesting conversation. I've been trying to calm myself because I'm always very excited when it comes to sales and tech. But this is always my last question for my guest.
Mm-hmm.
What is one what's the most powerful piece of advice that you've ever received? And it doesn't have to be related to anything that we've talked about today.
Great question. To clarify earlier, what I was saying in terms of like natural abilities is that I think also empathy, any abilities that we would categorize as masculine or feminine are can be learned and taught, right? I think that's really
Yeah.
important to clarify here on my end. Now, in terms of like the best advice I would say I have received is to always to follow someone who is like 2 or 3 steps ahead of you.
Hmm.
When I was first navigating my career, I was asking for advice from people who were like in their 40s and their 50s. And like, yeah, some of the advice was good, but to some extent it was no longer applicable. And
Hmm.
what I mean by applicable is that industry changes really fast, right?
Absolutely.
And what is important is that people that are 2 or 3 steps ahead of you, they already have the blueprint. They
Hmm.
have the blueprint because they've gone through it, right? They can tell you things to avoid. They can tell you how to improve on what you're currently doing, right? And so those are things that I really took to heart. Um, I would say I wish I did it earlier in my career versus later. I mean, when I say later, I did it more in like my early 20s versus let's say when I started my career as a teenager. But that was the most powerful piece of advice because when I started doing that, let's say if I had an interview coming up, I would reach out to someone who is already in that role to ask specific questions about, hey, how did you navigate this? Are there things you wish you knew earlier? What would you say is an advice you would give to someone who's just starting out like me? And I find conversations like that, people literally will give you the blueprint rather than having to hack your own brain and figuring out step by step. And that's how I was able to, be successful, I would say, when it came to scholarships, but also when it came to like working with like really top high growth tech companies as well, or even moving to Montreal. Every part of it, I think there's nothing new under the sun when
Hmm.
it comes from like career or life goals, and it's really about reaching out and having conversations with people that are 2 or 3 steps ahead of us.
Wow. That's profound. I was excited when you were talking about it. 2 to 3 steps, way better than 7, 8 steps. Yeah, because it's,
Exactly. Because then it's easier for you to imagine, like, oh, okay, this is my next step, rather than, okay, if someone's at the eighth step, then you're trying to figure out to do the
the,
rewind,
yeah, and
walk backwards.
the world is really changing so fast, and the advice that makes sense to someone that is 7 steps ahead of you may not be applicable at this point anymore.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Thank you so much, Dolapo. It's been a great time on the
Thank
Thriving Immigrant podcast. So if you are loving this conversation, feel free to hit the subscription button, share this with someone, and let's build a thriving community one day at a time. Thank you, Dolapo. Thank you for tuning in. On this note, I wish you guys a nice day.
Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It was a lovely conversation, and I really appreciate what you're doing here, as well in supporting every immigrant in Canada to thrive better. So thank you for having me.
Thank you too, and you are welcome.